So the idea here, Ed, is that they would run the business separately. And as Abigail alludes to, you got to wonder in the back of their heads whether they're looking at the Tesla multiples and thinking, I want some of that. Every auto exec I talk to, it's always the second or third thing they always talk about. How would this actually work in practice? What are they saying here? Because there seems to be some interesting disconnects in terms of the detail that we're getting here.
Yeah, that seems like a fair characterization based on what sources are telling Keith Norton and I. There are various mechanisms, right? They could literally spin off the electric vehicle business as a standalone unit. Sources say that's under consideration. They could spin off the legacy combustion engine business. But the net result is that you're separating the electric vehicle business from the combustion engine business, partly to get a fair value on the EV business. You know, according to sources, Ford had already spoken to bankers and consultants at the end of last year to think about how they could raise money. Because as you know, Guy, we'd already reported that there's this ambition to upscale their investments to about $50 billion. They've got 60 production facilities around the world, and it takes a lot of investment to change those assembly lines from gas engine assembly lines to ICE. That is some of the options that are on the table, as well as just simply restructuring internally and just running them as two separate businesses under one name.
Ed, where's the Ford family in all of this?
Yeah, fantastic question. The Ford family have 3 board seats, as you know. They have a special class of stock that gives them significant voting power. Sources tell us this is a sticking point, that Farley is kind of chopping and changing in his own mind between all of the options which are on the table. But whichever he goes with and whichever Ford choose, they're going to have to get it past the Ford family, who sources tell us have some reservations about a significant change to the status quo.
Has anybody done the maths on what a standalone Ford E business would be worth?
In short, no. I think that's part of the interesting question, that they perhaps potentially could raise money at a higher multiple if it was just based on the EV business. What we know is that Farley and Ford have already dramatically ramped up their production of the 2 products they've got, right? The Mustang Mach-E and the Ford F-150 Lightning. The demand for those 2 vehicles was much more intense than perhaps they expected. But they're still younger businesses. There isn't as great a visibility into profit, for example, but there probably is a great visibility into future revenue streams. So, you know, that's part of this. They take a look at Tesla, at the multiples Tesla trades at, and also Tesla's ability to tap capital markets for financing, right? Tesla has done various financing mechanisms. They've raised money at a cheap cost of capital. And I think, as you said at the beginning, Guy, maybe Ford wants a piece of that.
Speaking of different competitors, Ed, we have an IB question coming in from a viewer and terminal user. GM's head of Cruise, as we know, left the company earlier this year, and it appeared the issue may have been about spinning off the EV business. How universal is this problem?
Yeah, it's an interesting point. I think Guy is right to ask questions about unlocking value. These are incredibly capital-intensive enterprises, right? And in Cruise's case, GM was committing $1 billion a year to fund that business. At the same time, GM's trying to manage its own transition. This is the principal difference between Ford, GM, and Tesla. Tesla starts from a clean slate where it only makes electric vehicles. GM and Ford are having to transition while maintaining profitability of their best gas guzzlers. And GM was putting $1 billion into Cruise each year. By spinning it off, it could potentially stand on its own 2 feet, but also find a more fair valuation that would allow it to raise funds while giving investors kind of this look to the horizon, because as we know, these are technologies and business models that are far from being revenue generating, let alone profitable.